Alright, this is going to be the last video. I'm just making two on Avatar here because there are two topics I think are interesting in the movie. Well, there's a couple but that I want to talk about, and the second one isn't the economics so much, but the political science ramifications of the film. Now, there was a lot of discussion when it came out. A lot of libertarians, is it pro-libertarian, is it anti-libertarian? There's a lot of themes in the movie, technology versus nature, and so on and so forth. I think one of the main ones is the premise. The movie basically depicts exchange between two groups as being like necessarily antagonistic, as in the only way the humans can get what they want from Pandora, the only way they can get the unobtainium, is by destroying the Na'vi society. There's no middle ground. There's nothing that there's no consensus. There's nothing they can agree on. In fact, they make this explicit a couple times. You know, the owner of the corporation says, "Well, we tried to give them roads and education. They didn't want any of that." At one point, the star of the movie explicitly says that humanity has nothing to offer the Na'vi, and all they can do is steal and take. And this is a science fiction movie, and so it can't be faulted for making a hypothetical scenario where this is the case. Although one would wonder, these are Neolithic hunter-gatherers. Why you would want to give them roads and education doesn't make any sense. You'd probably start with knives and flint and tomahawks and that sort of thing. Why you want to skip all that stuff. But what this science fiction, so whatever, it's fine. You can think of a race that have nothing to exchange with each other. However, this means that in terms of having anything to say about human society, Avatar, to the extent that there really was nothing that they had in common or that they could exchange, has no relevance at all. Because at no situation in human society is there a situation where two societies cannot possibly find something that they exchange. And I think there's a real big misconception. People seem to focus on the conflicts that arise, and they seem to think that there's there's this inherent antagonism, a class antagonism. It seems like Marxism, but I actually think it goes a little bit deeper than that. And people, for instance, between the Europeans, so-called, I'm a European, I've never been there, and the Native Americans, or the Indians, as I prefer to call them, which, of course, are an extremely obvious prototype for Pandora. People think that, there's no way for us to get along, and so we exterminated all of them. Of course, this is completely false. There is enormous exchange between the two groups to the mutual benefit of both groups. Everyone's heard of the fur trade, and that's just one example. This is one type of market exchange. Well, there are many others. And although everyone's heard of it, it seems like people just dismiss it as, meaningless or exceptional, in that by and large, the two societies are antagonistic, and inherently so. And this is just not the case. The Europeans were able to give the Native Americans things that they wanted, that they were willing to exchange for. They weren't forced to accept these things, ever. And there were some Native Americans at some points who didn't want the things, and they just didn't trade for them. But they benefited enormously, and they exchanged for them voluntarily, and vice versa. The Europeans were happy to give these goods in exchange for whatever they were getting. I hate to say just beaver pelts, but that was one of the big ones for a long time. Although there have been other things. Early on, the settlers, the Europeans, wanted food more than anything else. They had a hard time of getting their own for the first couple years. And there's no examples in human history where this isn't the case. So, in Australia, there was exchange between the Aborigines and the ex-cons. Same in New Zealand, same everywhere. And the fact that the situation on Pandora in the movie is one that's explicitly stated where there is nothing they can exchange. There's nothing that humans can offer that the Na'vi care anything about, except apparently their companionship, since they could fall in love apparently, means that the movie has essentially no relevance, at least in this area, to human society. And so I think a lot of people who saw it drew the wrong lesson there, because there was no lesson there. I mean, it's science fiction, so you can make a movie where this is the case, but I don't want to fault Cameron. I'm not a fan or anything, but I'm just saying it does look like it has this anti-commercial bias that says just mere exchange isn't enough. Although mere exchange, I don't think you could ever say that it's mere. It's really important, and I think this limits the applicability of the Na'vi, or of the whole movie Avatar with the real world. Because in the real world, there's always going to be something that the two sides can exchange. There's always going to be, and that's going to be a little bit of common ground. Now that doesn't mean everything will always be nice, and of course, if you ask me, most of the time things don't work out is when it's not the market, but when the state is doing stuff. And if you look with the Native Americans, if I just ask people, name all the worst things that happened to the Native Americans, they're probably going to name all these things with the commonality being the state did it. And they're not even going to realize, the state put the Indians on the reservations. The state did the Sand Creek Massacre, and the state did, burned the Six Nations under, it doesn't occur to people that's the common theme there, and that there was enormous amount of market transaction that was mutually beneficial. But that's ignored because history is state history. And so when we read about state history, we don't read about markets, and we don't read about trade. Now, there were literate people who wrote about it, so historians can come across it, and no one wants to read a book about the fur trade. They want to read a book about Putnam's ransacking of the Six Nations, or whatever, Custer's Last Stand. They don't want to read about, mutual exchange. And I definitely don't want to think the state is the root of the problem. I mean, capitalism's going to get the blame, or something. Not necessarily capitalism, racism, something that's not the state. And I don't think this is a conscious trick. But look, I mean, and again, going back to the movie, there is no state. It's really weird. In the movie, all the employees, they wear camo, he's called colonel, they have a ranking hierarchy, but it's all a private company. If you look into the details, there is a government back on Earth, and they have sanctioned this corporation. I think it's called RDA, and they have a state-sanctioned monopoly on Pandora. But it's interesting that we're told this is business. This is proof of this is a demonstration of the evil of corporations, but it's certainly not a demonstration of free markets, and it's certainly a very statist corporation that has its highest ranking person be a colonel, and it seems like for every bulldozer they have 100 attack helicopters. I don't know, I think there's a couple points there, but anyway, I'm not going to make any more about Avatar. These are just the two things. I've thought about them for years, and I didn't make YouTube videos until a few months ago, and Just popped into my head because it's on HBO all the time now. So, alright, that's it.